Life prepared us, bro.
I know.
Hey,
All right.
you black in America. If you ain't prepared,
That's facts.
Flexibility.
That's fact. That's facts, man.
Hey, so what's good, gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Lighthouse series, presented by OA. This is objectively aggressive. And of course, I have my cast of distinguished gentlemen. If you want to introduce yourself, we switching it up. What's good? Shout outs.
What's good?
Tay, go Tay.
I let the good Doc go by, man. Go first.
Okay, Doc.
Yeah.
Oh man, you can call me Ham. I'm a little bit from everywhere, and excited to be here.
Oh, that's what's up. Tay, what's good?
Yeah, this your boy Tay, man. We also got a podcast, so podcast, you know what I'm saying? And we just out here just building, man, connecting, you know what I'm saying? So it's good to be with good people, man. Always good to, especially be with good black men.
That's what's up, man. I appreciate that. All right. So as we get started, we're gonna take about 20, 30 seconds to do some quick sharing real quick. So y'all sit back, buckle up.
People always ask you. People always ask you. All these damn people always ask. People always ask. People always ask. All these damn questions. People always ask. All these damn questions. All these damn questions. People always ask. All these damn questions.
People always asking me all these damn questions, and they so confused. I don't know what to tell them. Why he do this? Why he do that? How you do this? How you do that? Hell yeah, I'm trying to do what I want, and I get good grades. That's why I wear these hats ways. These people recognize that's why they stay up in my face. Cause
people always ask all these damn questions. People always ask all these damn questions.
they wanna know my play-by-play. They wanna know just what.
All right.
It's KJ.
Are you on Facebook Live right now?
What's that? What's good? What's good?
I don't see it on the thing.
You don't see it?
You on the OA perspective objective aesthetic?
Yeah. It's there. You should be able. It should have just posted to my page. Because it's streaming on the page. But if you need the link, I can send it to you.
Wait, I see it. I got you.
Cool. All right. So I like getting the administrators out the way so people can see a little, the dirty trying to get it done, people. And so today we're going to talk about power. and my talk about power is going to be something sweet. Sweet serenade today is to power, and my breakdown of power is going to be about authentic versus external power. And that is pretty much the personality and the soul, right? So you're doing things to satisfy the personality and you're doing things to satisfy the soul, which that's the difference between the five senses and the sixth sense. The sixth sense leading to multiple, that's multi-sensory, which leads to soul work. But if you're only using your five senses, which are insatiable, you'll be forever chasing things like money, sex, power, the seven deadly sins. And so as we talk about power, it's not that simple. Very, very, very complex, comprehensive, dense, if you would even say. But I think we got some people here to talk about it. And in my sweet serenade as well, we're going to talk about the woman king. So with that being said, Doc, I'm really thinking that the world really needs to start paying attention to how people with power are exploiting people and people with power are being exploited. And so what you see is when people are chasing the bag, like people in general want to live well. And so we find ourselves in fear of being broke or impoverished. So the opposite of that is to chase money. But if we're not in tune with ourselves, we're just chasing money and making that the ultimate goal for us. And money equals power, but with power comes everything that we want. And today I thought about it, like I feel like a complaint is an expression and a loss of energy because of a lack of power. What you got, Doc?
Oh man, so I think of power in a broad term, in every way of control, to manipulate, the ability to influence. If you go to the New Testament, the word miracle is translated as power, dunamis, authority. It's demonstrative ability. And so I think that when I I tell people that if you're going to build something, your building is only as strong as its foundation. And when I look at the history of the world, when I look at every civilization in human history, I see one principle. It's power. The ability to coerce, to influence, to manipulate, to direct, to redirect, but it's also the ability to control. And I think that when we look at power, and we've been taught that power it corrupts, but we were taught that by people who didn't want us to have power, how to suppress power, because there's nothing more powerful than when your thoughts intersect with someone else's thoughts, and then that thought connects to somebody else's thought. Now we get a power, because one of the things that I've seen happening is that one of the things that inhibit or prohibit us from having power is to learn how to connect, because not so we can take advantage of someone, not because not for the means. I'm talking about for the ends, because we always talk, the means have to justify the ends. But what is the end?
Always.
If is the end power? Is the end
Well,
power? If
that's a
the
good
means,
question.
if the
Well,
means, if the means are not to get power, and the end is not to get power, somebody's lying to you.
okay, so let's stop right there as we move to Tay's expression of it. I think that's the question: is the ends power? And so that leads right back to what I started with. It is, but is it external power or is it authentic power? Tay, what you got?
Man, I think that power can be both. I think it can be both, man. I think that's one of those things I like. Let's say is that power. I mean, it's an emotional power. It's economic power, political power. I mean, power is all encompassing. It's not a one dimensional thing. You know what I mean? It's three dimensional. You know what I mean? It's about 4 dimensional, really. You know what I'm saying? It
Right.
really is 4 dimensional. You know what I'm saying? So you can't obsessively look at one aspect of power. You know what I'm saying? You have to look at the different multi dimensions of power. You know what I mean? As you interact, and like I agree with Doc, it is a connection. So whether negatively or positively, you're having a some sort of connection, right? And that connection is energy, right? And that's really what we're talking about, right? Is
Oh,
energy, right?
energy.
We're talking about energy, right? The what connects us, what drives us, you know what I'm saying? Or what drives an individual, you know what I'm saying?
So
So
so let me stop you real quick, Tay.
mhm.
So we're talking about connection, we're talking about power, and I'm in total agreement with you guys. So connect me with what let's finish what me and you were talking about on your podcast, The Woman King. There was a
Mhm.
lot of power dynamics in
A
that.
lot of power dynamics, yeah.
Lot of power dynamics. So hit me with some of that, Tay, because hit me with what you were talking about on your podcast so we can kind of tie in what this power thing.
Well, in the Woman King, of course, you had the power dynamics of a culture, right? So you had the power dynamics of them. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Well, without spoiling.
It's gonna be tough, but you had the power dynamics of a culture, right? One culture that is trying to change from the past, right? So you had that power dynamic and that power struggle, and also the power dynamic between women and men, right? The power, the emotional dynamic of a mother and a daughter, a love dynamic. You had the power dynamic of economics, right? You had that dynamic. You had the dynamics of conquest, of conquering, right? That and
Mhm.
the religious aspect of it, right? The religious power aspect of it, right? There was one part in the movie that intrigued me, right? Where the Portuguese person, and that was deliberate, and that was one thing I liked about the Woman King. It was deliberate to a lot of the history is connected into the dialogue, right? So the person that's on that comes on the island, he's Portuguese, and if you know, the Portuguese were the ones who actually started the slave trade. You know what I mean?
Okay, here we
Um,
go. Here we
yeah.
go.
So he has this medallion and it's this cross, right? And he tries to give it to the African woman, and she drops it. You know what I'm saying? And he, being of Portuguese and Dahomey ancestry, she does the same thing, gives him an idol of their god. You know what I'm saying? And he
Right,
keeps it. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
so obviously the power there, he had some connection with that in order to keep it. You know what I'm saying?
All right, all right.
Yeah.
So I love the movie, and
Mm,
I loved it for the simple fact that I think there's always, two sides to a coin, and behind every strong man, there is a stronger woman.
mhm,
The neck, I would say, to a man's head, right? Man being the head. All right, if we're gonna play gender roles, the woman is the neck if you're in that particular dynamic. And I think the Woman King showed a lot of different power struggles between the male conscious with the female conscious, the conscious of black and white, but inside of the African community, the power struggle of the dominant tribe. Like we live that stuff right now. And that moving on to the next phase of existence is now, people. Because if you think about power, power is about, like I said, authentic and external, but power brings confidence. Power brings not fear, right? You can fall in love with power and become drunk with it, but you can actually love authentic power to how you feel and bring energy and like just be a whole vibe. Like I feel like I'm a whole vibe trying to do good,
Yeah.
right? So I don't let things get in the way of that, but I'm still a human being. And some things that I experience, like being, when you're going through a transition, like it's time for me to leave, the military and do different things, that hurts, right? So because I feel power leaving because there's a security that's leaving, right? And I'm now trying to plan for the future, right? And so the uncertainty that creates a fear, and we make decisions based off fear or love, right? And so, like I say, marriage, the archetype of marriage is old because it's based on security, the security of physical and now financial, and then it becomes emotional, right? Doc, hit me with that. Now, I always got to talk about love because that,
But you bring up a point, and I think this is part of the concern is that the power of the individual is not how white power works. See, what I see is that if you think of power as the purpose is to empower, and see what we have become as black people is we have become individually powerful, individual in our own sphere, but we've never been taught how to connect our power because I have to be powerful in my lane, you got to be powerful in your lane, and vice versa. So it's like harnessing energy. To your point, is how can you harness energy if you never built the infrastructure to allow it? So power needs infrastructure. And the reason I say white power, because I don't say black power, is because black power, most people thought was trying to imitate what white power was. White power was the ability to make laws, legislation, rules, and then regulations to control every aspect of your life. That's what their power was. So we understand that our power is different. Our power is breaking constructs and challenging your power. And I find that what we don't do is we don't have the facility to generate or to harness that power because we have been taught to be distrusting of it.
it also gets destroyed.
Well, yeah, but it does, but you can't destroy energy. It can only be
You can't,
transferred.
okay. It can only be displaced.
Displaced.
And moved.
And what's happening is that we are the most displaced. The diaspora is the most displaced forced migration in human history. No one has ever been, because you have to remember, if you put enough of us together, and not for the
We a gang.
well, but but not insofar as the purpose is to control. The purpose is that power is it becomes something that is the end, because we understand that if you are an oppressed person, your power is to overcome that oppression. But then
That's the first goal.
but then what do I look like outside of that? Because once we met, because if our end was to get free, once we're free, now we can disperse again. That's
Right.
why when there's a police shooting, we all come together, consolidate. Then we get some little blah blah blah, boom. And
Okay.
they've taught us that way, to only be come together for trauma, but not for power.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what with that, let's move into the confident opinion about power. And I'll say this. I'm learning that we get exactly what we want for where we are in life, right? Our power is as limited as we let it be, but we juxtaposition that with our resources, and then that can automatically defeat a person's thought of what power is. And I would say nobody really knows who they are. They only act like they do. And with that builds a confidence. And that confidence comes from the power of self, the light within self, the consciousness of self in which you exist, right? You're a great dad, you're a great teacher, you're a great cop, you're a great whatever. You do this hopefully with all altruism, right? But you hope that you're doing it. You know that you're doing it, and you hope that you're doing it. But the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset says, growth mindset says, I know that I'm doing it well, but I could do it better. The fixed mindset says, this is the best I can do. And so my confident opinion is that people don't really know who they are, and a lot of people faking it.
Yeah.
What you got, Tay?
Yeah, man. For me, I guess my confident opinion about power is that, for Black people, man, is that we have power, right? We are powerful. We are powerful, right? Through, if people just if you are Black and you are here today, one of your ancestors survived a 3-month voyage from the coast of Africa or from the coast of South America or the Caribbean, you know what I'm saying? And they survived slavery and Jim Crow and these other things, you know what I'm saying? And gave you power to be powerful, you know what I'm saying? I think that a lot of times today, our power is wrapped up in what we have, right? Our power is wrapped up in a lot of things that don't matter, right? You know what I'm saying? When we're talking about, people who, we're consumers, right? We consume a lot. Black people get marketed to more than any other group of people because we spend, we overspend, right? We buy name brand things. You know what I'm saying? And we don't focus on true power dynamics. We don't focus on the dynamics of power in this on this plane, right? We don't focus on political power, economic power, and things like that. I always say, with Black people, we went from protest to politics, but we never transitioned from politics to power, right?
Progression.
Well, not necessarily a
I
progression.
mean,
Because it's not a. I mean, you could call it progression, but really we were supposed to transition. That's what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to transition. And what happened was we just had a group of people who just made money and got comfortable, and they was like, okay, I'm okay with white supremacy and white
well,
nationalism as long as it doesn't affect me.
interruption. I would say a lot. There are a lot of people making money on the backs of religion, in that evangelical role, which is controversially, like, we're talking, the conqueror's God type stuff. But we ain't gonna get into that right this second. What you got? What you got, Doc?
But I think you have to be able to challenge maxims that were taught to you by people who enslaved you. So knowledge isn't power if the knowledge is given to you by somebody who needs you in bondage. You're not going to get knowledge from people who have an interest in your ignorance. You can't get knowledge that way. And so what happens to us is that when we tend to get knowledge, we tend to start with the framework that's Eurocentric. The idea, you don't hear it. Tell me one African philosopher you know of. But I can tell you Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Heidegger, Nietzsche, Sartre, because Western philosophy is European. So their thinking is European and their ideas. So when I look in African philosophy, I realize the Imhotep. I realize that the Greeks stole their knowledge from Africa and then plagiarized it. So when we start to talk about our knowledge, what we have to remember is that nobody who hates you can teach you anything. And, nobody who hates you will empower you to be able to replace them.
All right. So that's deep and that's bold and that's great. That's great because the thought here is as we talk about these things and, because we got a lot of different viewers and I'm not scared to talk about anything aggressively because this is all objective, right? But the objective is the system of thinking is to understand that we live in a world that we see things differently than other people. And we happen to have come from a world that was very diverse and we got to peek into how to build and destroy. And so we understand the system thinking. And so when we talk Eurocentric and all these things, it's not to divide, it's to create a thought process and understanding that these things exist, because if they don't, we wouldn't sit up here and talk about them. They exist in our conscious. Yeah. And so when we talk about the difference, we exist differently because we choose to look at it. But when we talk about the things that we have in common, there's a common struggle. And the struggle is for your soul, people. You know what I mean? And so the struggle for your soul is if you're not fighting for your soul, you're losing it because it's a constant battle every day, right? Because, Goody Mob said it best. We're fighting for our spirit and mind. Mobb Deep said it the other way. It's a war going on outside. No man is safe.
Safe from.
Right. And so it's true because your own worst enemy is yourself. Right. And so if you don't look in the mirror and see how you're taking your own self out, sheesh, you're done before you leave the house. Right. But to understand that if you're not nurturing your soul with good habits to make you a good person, to do good things, you won't reap the rewards of that as a farmer, right? As you reap and sow. But you will always be a warrior because you're gonna always have to fight, but you're a farmer and a warrior because you're gonna reap what you sow.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Would you rather be a good person or a powerful person?
Man, I'm a B-side alternate mind person. I'm gonna be a very good, powerful person. I'm taking option C, Doc.
No, and the reason that I say that, the reason that I say that is because a lot of times we associate goodness without power.
Oh, you have to have the power. I think you have to have power to have the influence to be good, and that starts with self. And so, as I pass you this, though, I'm gonna pass you this, Doc. Understanding the difference between authentic power and external power is important. That's why knowing that 48 Laws of Power is a corruption book.
Yeah,
right.
But when you talk about what the difference is, you have to start with something very singular here. So
right.
the purpose of white power is different than what black power is for. Because see, you've heard of this great replacement theory?
Yeah, I have not.
All right. So say, why don't black people worry about being replaced?
You said why we don't worry about it?
Why we don't worry about it?
Because we can't be replaced. We outnumber.
Well, but you hit it. We cannot be replaced.
Be replaced.
You can't replace black people.
You can't replace black.
There's no fear of us. Yeah. Genetically, you can't replace us genetically. We have a dominant gene. We don't have a recessive gene. You can't replace us. So a part of white power is birthed in white fear. And their power has to be created to segregate us. So the difference is that we can include anybody into our community. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, anybody can come in our community. But you can't change it.
Mhm.
Right.
That's why the difference of segregation was so important. Because if we come into their community, we could change it.
Stop you hitting them too hard, Doc.
Hey, but not just, and I'm not talking about genetically change it. We can bring
I know.
black thought
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
black
yeah.
thought because black thought is inclusive. See, black thought wants your thought, and say, listen, let's all meet together and
Blue.
let's wrestle your idea. Because one of the differences is that with white power comes groupthink.
Mhm.
They don't have diversity of opinion and thought because everybody is homogenous. With
Right.
black thought, you have diversity of thought. So I think that's the difference. When we start talking about we're not fearing being replaced. We don't fear because you can't replace us. Because first off, nobody wants to be at the bottom.
Facts. Machine. Tay.
And
So go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, go
No,
ahead.
no, that's for you.
Oh, no. I was saying, and you know, the other thing is that, you know, we don't have a fear of being replaced because we have a culture, we have a foundation, right? No matter in black peoples, right? We when talking about black peoples, talking globally. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? There is a black culture somewheres, you know what I mean? And in America, we have a culture, you know what I'm saying? And we're an ethnic group, you know what I mean? And always say about, you know, white people in America that they're individuals, right?
Oh,
They're
this is
Oh
a
yeah,
fact.
but only insofar as that power. When it comes to power, they're the fist.
Oh yeah,
Solidarity.
because they recognize their identity, right?
Yeah.
They come together based on their identity, not because of a culture. Because, like you saying, that's what replacement theory is, right? Replacement theory is like, hey, German person or Italian person or English person or what? Look, we all come from the same genetic pool. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So we need to come together to stamp out these other people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you know people need to know about the Italians that got lynched in Louisiana. Why did they get lynched? Because they looked at them as black people. That's why they got lynched. You know what I'm saying? And then they become, you know, white Americans and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
you know but there is a difference in how black people have power in this country, right? We create things, right? We create rock and roll, we create country music, we create religion, we create poetry, we create fashion, we create consumerism in this country. You dig what I'm saying? And also with consumerism and everything else, you know, we have to build infrastructure. We have to take that power and build infrastructure within our community.
Hey, man, that was a good segue into Cockley explanation.
Mhm.
We build, and we want to build. We want to build, and it goes back into what the good doctor was saying about how you can't get rid of the black thought because it's about inclusion. It's about taking something and make it better. It's like, oh, let me take that and put that. Man, I got things that people are like, oh, you put that Calvin touch on it, put that little on it, right? You know what I mean? So you hit it with that, and so we do that. And so letting other people who don't have our perspective know that it's all good. It's just like it ain't all good, but it's all good. Like be equal, be straight. You know what I mean? And come at us right. We here to work together, but in their mind, the people who are thinking like this, even unconsciously, is that we're here to take over or we have revenge. So the Cockley explanation is, like real talk, if we want a revenge, that would have been happened.
Yeah, but you have to remember, man, nature determines what's supreme.
Mm-hmm.
Nature does it. You don't have to. I think my Cockley explanation is one of our greatest fears is we don't know what black power looks like. We've never seen it. We've never seen black power, and it's a frightening thing to understand what it would mean, what it would actually mean for us to see it. Because I think it makes white people afraid, but it also makes black people scared too. Because they think that black people with power are just going to replicate what white people have been doing with the power. We're going to be doing
that's what's happened.
Because one of the things is when we don't know something, our first thought is to resort back to what's the most similar thing to it. And I think what we found out is that you are a powerful individual first, And being a conduit is magnetism. So some things attract, some things repel. And when you find out what power does, is it attracts. It attracts because it understands that when you start to bring people together, that you're going to have more power combined. And so if you can create this unity, this harmony in the community, then they understand that our power base, which starts at the family level, if I can disrupt the family, then I can nullify that power unit. So that family won't connect with this family. So now your daughter would marry his son, and then we would become one family, because that's what marriage was. Marriage wasn't about love; it was about family getting more farmland and more goats. That's what dowry was, because they
which
understood
went into security, right?
Yeah, and so when we start to look at one of the things that we have created, is the worst thing the Afrocentric mind can do is embrace this idea of individualism, because the African mind is not individualistic. It's not. And it won't mesh, because what we'll find out is that our culture is not just in the matter of outside of shared trauma. Outside of shared trauma, what you see is that we created things for necessity. We didn't want to eat pig guts, but we made it a delicacy.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and that's cultural things that I believe that we find.
Well, so one of the things that you said about, you know, the we'll say the white experience is that it's individualistic, and it is the most individualistic experience as the consciousness in the United States versus any other consciousness. Asian have a collective, Hispanics have a collective, you know, and when I say Asians, I mean all specific parts, right? And so the white existence they have a culture, and there can be things pointed to it, but it's more individualistic, excuse me, than collective. Okay.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, I totally agree with that, and I always try to, you know, whenever I have conversations with those that identify as white, to get them to understand that they are individuals. They are the racial group. You know what I mean? Like, we black people are not the racial group. We're not the racial group, even though we are racialized. You know what I'm saying? You know, so you know, my cocky explanation would be, you know, within is that how we give up power. We give up power within the black community because we are so inclusive, right? You know what I'm saying? Once those Africans who become American, by the way, the 14th Amendment, they the first thing you see is these, you know, these poor white Europeans who come and live with black people because they don't know how to farm the land, especially when they moving out west. And we were inclusive of that. We were so inclusive of that. We started the Populist Party. You know what I mean? Coming together and saying, hey, yeah, you can live with us, you can be with us. You know what I'm saying? When the Italians and the Irish and the Germans came over here, and they were the ones who lived in ghettos. Black people were not living in ghettos. They were the ones who lived in the ghettos up north. Well, who else were they? They went to black communities and hung around black people. You know what I'm saying? When you're talking Harlem, or when you're talking Chicago, as black people moved to the north. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because we were inclusive. Malcolm X talks about this in his book, right?
And big game. Guess who was good at basketball then? The people who are in ghettos. It has been tied to basketball being like environmental, because at one point in time, the people who lived in those ghettos, in those collective areas, they didn't have any. They were shooting up.
I mean, because they all, you know,
basketball history.
well, they all came together under one reason, in economics. You know what I'm saying? On the
Oh, for
economics,
sure. Just a little basketball, you know.
Okay, yeah. It
You
was
know
just
what I mean? It's something I learned. Like it was something that I learned about the game of basketball transcending race. Right? It was like you could find people playing basketball in those areas of ghetto and what's
But I'll
not.
say in modern time, what transcended race in modern time was most definitely hip hop, right? Because a lot of those Italian gangs, a lot of those Irish gangs, the gang members, they become b boys, right? You know, if anybody know anything about hip hop, they become b boys, and you know that thing Warriors. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, that movie Warriors, like. That's what
We
happened.
took on hip hop definitely took on gang, Italian gang culture.
Hmm.
We see that a lot, man. Like
Yeah, I mean,
Godfather, like
yeah,
Pinky
they see a
Rings
lot,
and
man.
all that,
Yeah, but
and all that stuff.
we gotta stop giving up our, or I would say being too inclusive, man. We want to invite folk to the cookout too quick, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? And they just have an individualistic mind. They're not gonna stay at the cookout. Let me say that.
So
They ain't gonna
they ain't
stay at
gonna
the
stay
They
at
gonna
the
come.
cookout.
They gonna
The
come.
space game gonna send them running immediately.
They gonna come.
Dominoes.
They gonna come. Get grandma recipe. Open up a store and sell it.
sell it. That's what they're gonna do, man.
Go get the recipe. And they gonna sell it.
Hey,
They
man.
gonna
Hey,
call it Kentucky
they're
whiskey.
gonna call it. Hey, I try to tell people about Andrew Yang, right? Andrew Yang took Martin Luther King's and Jesse Jackson's political message and then spun it, and he didn't give him no credit.
Bruh.
Oh,
Because
Well,
that's
he gave
bad.
Martin Luther King credit, but you know what I'm saying. But that's what happens. You know what I'm saying. That's what happens.
yeah,
I
it's
mean, so
fair.
in this particular world, everything's appropriated, right?
Mm.
Ugh.
We as when
I mean,
black
in this,
people we
I can
allow
tell you this
appropriate.
as a creative mind. So, as in the black conscious of being creative, because I feel like anybody can be creative, but we're talking appropriation. Like, there are things that I've said and done that I thought I created. Like, I promise you, I felt like I was the first one to type WYD. What you doing? You know what I mean? Like it's things like that, right? Like
Yeah,
I was playing my music, right? Like I feel like I was the first one to make an album and a song called "Take One for the Team." Like I
Mhm.
have these things that I feel like I've said, and then I had in my mind like I said that, and I've heard like Lil Wayne or somebody of secular importance said, "I'm like, man, I said that." So great minds can think alike, and to use rhetoric and to stand on the shoulders of giants and what we do. But it's like with credit, you have to give credit where credit is due, right? And so I
Mhm.
understand us like, why you ain't giving credit? Why you ain't giving credit? It's like at some point in time, like myself, like I can be molded a certain type of way, and I have to go back and piece the things together. Like my dad taught me this, and my dad taught me that, or my mom taught me this, or I learned this from like watching this particular documentary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
Like
the
I had to
argument,
be
yeah.
intentional. And
But
so
the
as we talk intentions, right? We're going to intentionally move into this money part as we coming into our 40 minute. And as we talk money and book tip, I want you, my money tip is spend your money on this book called The Seat of the Soul. I think that is important because I've looked at the book and I've read it a couple of times, and people who want to act like they're spiritual or religious, like I asked an elder the other day about her religion, and it was that cliche, God, God, Jesus, Jesus, da 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 da, and it was like, is there any more? And so this book is just the more. It's to be a better person, right? So just spend the money, take your money, spend it on this book called The Seed of the Soul, because it talks about how to get after authentic power to save your soul, right? And so that's my money and book tip wrapped up, done.
Yeah, let me see, man. I have to find a book, man.
since we on the subject today,
Good.
Black Power.
Oh,
It's a blueprint because you need a blueprint for you build something.
Mhm.
Dr. Amos Wilson, this book goes into it's one of the thicker books you're going to realize, because what you'll find is that over time, nobody created anything new. And one of the things that we don't see in our community is we have good ideas, but everybody's building their own structure.
This is a fact.
Everybody's building their own structure.
Bro, I try to reach out. Listen to me. My whole life, I be trying to reach out and build all these connections, and we try, and I get it. And this ain't a shot at nobody. And I'm glad that me, and this man looking for a book was able to do this. You know what I mean? Again, just having that connection. And so I understand exactly what you're saying, which is what I just said formally was about. Nothing is original.
Yeah.
That's why the Bible, even though we can have our conversations about it, has parable to stuff that actually happens, and they took those stories, and made them their own, as they pass them down,
Oh yeah.
right? And so to blindly follow it is but to look past all the bias and all the stuff and just get the stories is when you have transcended. What you got, Tate?
Yeah, man. And yeah, man, I'll stay on that Black Power tip, man. Introduced this book right here, The Defeat of Black Power, Civil Rights and the National Black Political Convention of 1972. This is when Black people came together in 1972 to actually try to form a Black political power with actual Black causes, right? It had a pledge that politicians had to sign that they were going to do for Black people. Policies that they would pass, the Gary Declaration, also a lot of CBC members and some important members, Black people who we should be giving flowers to, like Sammy Davis Jr., Sidney Poitier, and Harry Belafonte, as well as Dr. Scott King and Dr. Betty Shabazz. You know what I mean? They all were at this National Black Political Convention. There were other Black people, celebrities who also supported this Black convention. But the one thing that failed again was, Black people just coming together under one accord, not understanding the moment. Number one, they rushed it. They were trying to get ready for the 1972 elections, and again, we got elections this year, so Black people, we have to get out and vote. We don't vote as a power base. We only vote at, let's see, we're at midterm, so we'll be voting nationally somewhere around 40%. Locally, it'll be somewhere around 20% or lower, especially in places where there are Black people, where there are Black people that are a minority majority. And so we don't elect Black representation. That's why a lot of times I hear this rhetoric of people who saying that we don't see change and all this other stuff. Well, we're not trying to make it. We're not trying to create a change. You know what I'm saying? And we have a misunderstanding of government and power and politics, and understand that those folks who identify as being white in this country did not build this country simply by being white. They built this country because the government gave them the ability to create economics, to create wealth. And we have to understand that. And also, the country for about 60 years made it a white country for 60 years. For about 60 years, it was a white country. So, we got to understand that, man. We got to get out and create a power base using the government and vote based on economics. You dig?
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. As always, I appreciate having y'all. So as we depart with the final thought, real quick, where can people find you, Tay? Where you want people to find you?
Oh man, you guys can go to Yah'm Saying Podcast. That's YAH MSAYIN. Find us there on Facebook. We be trying to get it in there. We will be doing a podcast. Me and the bro. We're gonna do one talking about the black elephant. We're gonna be talking about yeah, it's called. We can name it the black elephant. We're gonna be talking about these black folk on the who are really the opposition to black people.
Gotcha. All right, Doc. You want
what?
You want people to find? Oh, my bad.
The coconut.
Yeah, coconut. Brown on the outside, white on the inside.
Oh man. All right. Doc, you want people to find you? You want people to find you, Doc?
Oh, I don't want to be found.
All right.
Hey, if you see me, you were supposed to see me.
And we'll leave it at that. All right. So, hey, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and for those who check it out later. I hope you enjoyed it. This is only to bring perspective. It seems like pressure, but it's just perspective. All aggressive, and with all that, it's getting a little chilly outside. We got hoodies and stuff going on, so I gotta do a plug for OA. By KJ.com. Get your little hoodie on, get your little coffee mug or something. That's we gotta, and that's to show reverence, right? Like, I mean, it's not a thing, but when you walk around and you can make statements without talking, and then it generates conversation, that's when you can change the world. And with that, aggressive. I'm out.
Peace.
Hey, y'all stay on the line.
Yo, show.